All right. So we're going to do a quick demo of Legal Server and immigration forms. So we talked last time about just kind of how Legal Server works, the flexibility of it stuff. So a lot of our clients, a lot of the clients that use Legal Server have the need to integrate with immigration tools and including forms. So a lot of the work that we've done has been kind of centered around immigration specific things. So I always tell people we don't sell Legal Server as an immigration forms platform. Like there are companies out there that all they sell is immigration forms. What we sell is a case management system that includes the immigration forms included in it.
Okay.
So if I just click on a case here, one of the things that I think we talked about last time that I just will highlight is because your agency handles lots of different types of cases, immigration cases are so different than foreclosure cases versus bankruptcy cases versus any other kind of case. The types of things that you track in an immigration case are completely unique to how the immigration system works. So one of the things that we have before I get to the forms is, in our views functionality, a lot of agencies that do multiple kinds of work will have a specific view for their immigration cases. Otherwise, you're trying to stuff a bunch of immigration information in with the foreclosure information in with the divorce information. So by having this, it allows you to say, if this immigration case comes in, then just by default, show the immigration view. So this is the same case that we're looking at, but it's the view is an immigration view. So exact same case,
Okay.
with different lens to look at the case through. And you can see down here, you can see the immigration information, the forms processes plus the asylum related stuff. So we log things like marital history, when you come in and out of the country, employment history, because a lot of immigration forms need that information in the form itself. So you might not care, you might be tracking like, are you married or what's your marital status on every other case. But if you're an your immigration unit may want to know what is your current marital status, but have you been married before? How did that marriage end? Where was it? Where was the marriage? Where you were married in X country and whatever. So all of those tools exist. I won't bore you with all the immigration tools per se, but I can show you kind of how the immigration forms work.
Okay.
So immigration forms are a tool that has some kind of works in similar to our other document templates, but we treat them separately. One, because they're standardized at the federal level. And so the same immigration forms are used in Waco, Texas that they use at the National Immigrant Justice Center in Chicago, and the same that kids in need of defense use in Washington, D.C. And the other thing, so we published the list here. You have a couple of options. You can jump to instructions. You can go through what's called a form process. You can look at just a blank form, or you can look at the blank PDF. So I'm going to show you the forms process because that's the part that will pull from Legal Server the information. So let's create, do you do immigration work, Ken, by chance?
Yeah. So yeah, that's a large majority of our work.
Okay. So are you focused on children? Are you focused on asylum?
Mostly family-based, naturalizations, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty general.
Yep, got it. So let's say that you wanted to file a G28 right? So this is a good example for a couple of reasons. One is that one of the things that we realized once we started doing document automation about, 12 years ago, that a lot of people assumed that the client was always going to be the applicant. But as we started getting into immigration, we realized that that's actually not always the case, right? So like the applicant might be a derivative. So the kid might be the applicant. Like your client may be the mom and the kid may be the applicant on the derivative application. Or In this case, the attorney that you're filing the G28, you might have 4 attorneys working on the case and you need to file 4 different G28s. So the first thing that we do is we say, we're going to default to who we think the actor playing the character is, if you think about it like a movie. So in this form, we think the actor is Podrick Parker, and we think that we're going to default to Charles Kaiser as the attorney. But I could also switch and say, you know what, there's another person here that is our attorney that we need to fill it out for, so I'll just put in this person instead. So now we're going to pull information from a different place, right? So we're going to pull it on this person as opposed to on Charles.
Okay.
So we now assign the actors to the characters, and then we're going to show some basic information. This is stuff from the case management system. So this is pulling information that we may need in the application. So, and this is stored in the case in legal server. So if I want to edit some of this real quickly and say, you know what, let's put in, you know, this city of birth or whatever, right? I can put that in here. Now it's saved in legal server. We've got it as part of the case. We've just updated the case file with whatever. Now we have that field updated. And then the next step, we say, okay, now that we have all that information, we wrote a tool that basically extracts from the immigration forms, extracts the look and feel of them, and it just displays them as HTML. It displays them in the web page. So now we've got the form here. It's got the information. I can add more information here if I wanted to add, you know, a number here or this or whatever. So this stuff wasn't put into the system yet, so I can add it. So this isn't so important for a demo, but just FYI, this is saved in legal server, but it's not saved in the case. So if I change the spelling of my name, it's not going to update the case record, but it is saved in the database in a separate table so that if I ever want to reuse this form, I can. But it's not going, at this point, it's not going back. Had I wanted to make that change in the database, I would have had to do it at the previous step. But we are saving this information. So once I have this information filled out, and then if I also have any addendum information, so sometimes that happens, like if they give you 5 places to list employment, but you have 12 places that in your employment history you might have to put in an addendum, you can type that here. And it'll add onto the page. And then if you want to create an activity, so I don't know if we spent much time talking about tracking activities, but if you were going to mark in the case, filed a G28 form in the case, and you wanted that as a separate activity in the case, I could add that here. And then whatever name I want to give the document, it defaults to this. But I could change it to, like, you know, something like, you know, Ashton G28. So by hitting add and continue here, we now have generated the PDF of the document. If I want to download that, I click it here. This is just going to open Adobe or whatever. And then we also have it saved as a generated form in the document. So I'll switch views to go back to show it. But in the so if we look in the documents here, it's somewhere in this, here it is. So that G28 form's here. So now obviously if you want to do stuff in Adobe Fillable, you can finish it out there and whatnot, but you can see it here on the case.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you have any questions on, I mean, you were just asked about the immigration forms, and I thought maybe it'd be helpful just to jump on a quick call to
Yeah. So the general information collected, you know, in the intake process, that can be customized to get the additional information for, you know, the immigration forms, and it'll automatically fill those in as you were just showing.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got information about your attorneys and your clients, and every form's different in terms of what it's collecting. But the idea is rather than have to start fresh every time you want to generate a document and type in all that information, this just auto fills it. And, you know, our theory on it is, even if it only gets 90% of the data you need in there, because you're not collecting 10% in legal server, that's still a lot better than having to collect.
Yeah, yeah, agree with that. Like, and so the immigration view, does it change like the intake categories? Like you would get different information if it was an immigration case?
Yeah, so that's more of a question about how you gather information. So what I always say to people is that I think of intake as kind of an upside down funnel. So like the top part, as you turn it over, is really narrow. That's going to be the type of information you collect on every case. It's going to be,
Yeah.
the name, the address, the family members, you're going to do your conflict searches, your financial stuff. But at the bottom of the intake, if you design it this way, of course you can design it however you want, is the part where when you select immigration, that you're going to branch out and then use logic to figure out how to ask questions. So, what type of immigration case is it? It's a family-based case. And so you start asking questions that are relevant to that. It's an asylum case. Then you start, well, what kind of asylum? What country you're fleeing? When did you enter the U.S.? And, you might trigger branch logic that says, oh, you entered the U.S. a year and a half ago. Well, look, attorney, FYI, there's a 1-year rule in asylum cases that they're past the deadline for. Here's how you handle that, or we don't take cases like that because they're too complicated or whatever. So the point is the workflows of immigration are designed and built as part of the intake. And then, of course, as part of the ongoing case, you're updating things, documents that you need, things like that. And then the generation of forms and such are tied back to this as well.
Okay. And that intake setup is just part of the customization as we
Exactly. Yep.
design it.
Yep.
Okay.
And you might say, like different organizations do it differently. Some people say that they want to have their own intake for immigration just because it's so specialized. And so you can build a second intake process. You can also make it so that only your immigration attorneys see it if that was important to you. So it's not confusing to people that don't need to worry about it. But generally, you could either have one intake that everyone uses, and you use logic within the intake to dictate the questions that you ask, such as immigration versus bankruptcy or something, or you have, or you use a separate intake process just for that, and separate views, separate profiles, and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. I'm trying to think of any other questions. Is there anything else immigration specific you can think of?
No, I would just add that, if you look at our list of agencies that use Legal Server, there are a lot of the big name immigration, like all they do is immigration stuff. National Immigrant Justice Center, Kids in Need of Defense, Human Rights Initiative in Dallas, Pro Bar in Harlington, IUTA, Tahare, which has an office in Houston. These are just some in Texas.
Yeah.
So, but Human Rights First, Northwest Immigrant Justice Project up in Seattle. So a lot of the really large immigration groups use Legal Server to manage their immigration cases.
Gotcha.
In addition to all the clinics and agencies that, of course, offer immigration as one of their services. And I'm happy to put you in touch with people too, if that helps.
Okay.
But I think one of the things that I like to stress is that this isn't the first time around the block for immigration with us, and our community, I think, is a really great community, and just being a part of that will be incredibly helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. I bet. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to stop